Seema ma'am, I just wanted to ask you, I'll repeat my question, which I had actually asked. So, how can the education about mental health strategies uh, be given to the children so that they are reducing their social stress and anxiety and insecurity that seems to be persisting right now? So, how can this awareness help them?
I've been listening into the other panelists, and I absolutely agree with them. But I would like to hear, perhaps go off at a tangent and take a step back and look at the question of mental health. What really do we mean in the realm of mental health? Our approach to mental health is more or less reactive. Very little of it is proactive. And the reason for that is that when we define mental health, we actually look at the cognitive development of the mind.
Hmm.
Perhaps the focus, even within the realm of education, the entire focus is on either development of skill or the cognitive knowledge and information ability of the brain. We are not focusing so much on the social or the emotional development, whereas that actually is the basis of mental health. Academics is, like I said, totally focused on, and that today is becoming more and more irrelevant. Knowledge is at your fingertips, information can be downloaded as and when required. You do not need to memorize it, you do not need to store it. It's available at the click of a button.
Yeah.
So when we talk of mental health, actually, if I were to compare this maybe to the industrial revolution, I would say we are in perhaps the second phase, which was the mechanization, mass production. To take it to the next level, the next phase, we should actually be looking at purely how are we developing the mental and social, I would say the socio-emotional growth of the students. Academics would take a secondary, would play a secondary role. The primary role would be to have a child who is emotionally and socially well adjusted, well developed, with all the 13 skills that we say which are required for socio emotional development. And then after the child has reached a certain level of maturity, his interests, his aptitude will come to the fore, and those areas can be explored. He can develop a skill in that area, he can pursue any academics that he is interested in. I think if that was the kind of approach that we followed in education, it's actually inverted in a way. We are focusing on perhaps white collar and blue collar, which is skill based and knowledge based. But we are not so much focused on the yellow collar. What is the attitude? Most important, what is the attitude that a person brings to life? And the aptitude. The aptitude will decide what career options or what skills the child will follow. But the attitude is something which is universal, no matter what career or what age or stage in life the student is. So when we talk of education, actually we should be looking at much beyond the cognitive development, but at the socio-emotional, for use of better words, at the socio-emotional development of the child. And some work, I'd just like to share here, some work has already been done. It's being done in pockets. I do know of Punjab Technical University, which has a course. It's an MTech course. It's a master's in technology course in human values. So the objective of this course is that you can make an engineer, but that knowledge of engineering, should it be what is the right application of that knowledge? Unless that knowledge and information or skill is used for the larger good of humanity, being an engineer really, the knowledge and skill could also be used for the adverse impact on society. So who is to decide? How are you to decide? So that is where this MTech gives you a clear path as to how to apply your knowledge and how to ensure that your actions are ultimately for your own good and also for the larger good of your community and the world at large.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think if we were to, re-examine how we approach mental health, perhaps that would help us really to refocus and understand where education should be going.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And especially your stress on socio emotional learning is very, very important. And I think that is going to make a difference I in the would lives of request children. Seema ma'am to answer this question. This is an ideal situation where a parent comes to you and says that, okay, my son has now gone into more of introvertedness and is not talking much, doesn't show any interest in anything, seems to be mostly playing computer games and all, and is not talking to people around in the family. So the parent is feeling really, really kind of jolted because of this kind of behavior of an adolescent child. What would you like to say to such parent, and how would you like to help such child?
Um, First of all, it's a huge dichotomy that we are going through at this moment. The very children that we would encourage to leave their devices, to go out and play, to socialize, in fact, are now being told to spend time looking at the screen and to study through the digital devices. So to that extent, there is a total flip over from how we were educating our children and how we were handling issues such as introvertism. Of course, one has to understand, and I'm sure the parents also have to be explained, that there are certain phases in a child's life. A teenager or an adolescent will go through a phase of isolation. The child is trying to transition from being a child who understands the authority of the parent to transitioning to be an adult where he has to establish his own identity and has to establish his own individuality. So to that extent, will always be a phase which has to be understood, which has to be dealt with great understanding and empathy. So that's something which the parent has to be explained, has to understand. Of course, the school and the parent have to work together. There's a huge role in collaboration and communication between the teachers and the school and the parents to understand the child and to support the child at this time. It's a very crucial juncture, where there is every possibility of the student following a less than desirable path. So to circumvent that, it's very important. Like I said, we have within our school a very multi-layered structure to ensure that nobody falls through the holes or nobody slips through the web. Of course, the class teacher is the first line of approach for any student, which presently is a little, because it's all digital, very remote, impersonal. So the connect is a little less, but in the physical environment, the teacher is the first line of support. Also, along with that, we have a very structured mentoring system in the school, where a mentor is assigned to each student, and the mentor is not to be approached at the time of need. It's a proactive approach where the mentor is, has a scheduled meeting with each and every student as per a structure which is defined. So the mentor proactively reaches out to the students and will discuss, any issues which the student may have, which the student may not have verbalized as of now, but which could become issues in the future. In addition, the mentor, redirects the energy of the student, channelizes, motivates the student to make sure that the student optimizes his potential. So it's a more of a proactive approach rather than waiting for something to go wrong and then reacting to it. So that kind of approach, I think, is what will help not only, say, in this case, as you're mentioning, one student, but
Yeah.
all students who would be going through this phase. In the times of COVID, it's all the more important for the teachers and the parents to have a close channel of communication, because like I said, everything is very remote, very digital. So there's an element of impersonal approach in the whole process. So there, having a channel of communication is going to play a crucial role.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense, having mentors and also having proactive mentors who kind of approach the children even before the crisis.
I absolutely agree. I think Anjali ma'am, she said, focus on yourself, focus on your own happiness. And if you have happiness, it is contagious, you will spread it. And whoever comes in contact with you will certainly feel the benefits, will also become happier, will also be de-stressed. So just the focus, on de-stressing, on empathy, on kindness, on love. I think it's a huge part, and the pandemic is teaching us, how people are coming forth. I think more than the government, or along with the government, the NGOs and individuals who have stepped forth and provided succor, not only to family and friends, but also to total strangers. And it's a huge source of satisfaction. It's a huge source of happiness, personal happiness. They say happiness is in giving rather than in receiving, and people are living that. And that is how, we are all spreading happiness, we are all spreading peace rather than stress. Although the pandemic may be causing stress, but if we help each other, if we support each other, then automatically we spread peace, happiness, amongst each other. So I think it's important, along with, yes, the news has to talk about the numbers, the statistics, and the sad state of affairs. But at the same time, if they could also talk about, what good is happening, how, like I said, people are coming forth, to help, not only with money, but also with their time and with their kind gestures. So many people are helping each other. So those stories tend to reinforce that, along with the pandemic, there is also a lot of support, which is physical and emotional. And that brings a lot of confidence amongst people, whether, no matter what strata. They could be students, children, they could be teachers, parents, everybody. As human beings, we are all touched by it. So these happy stories would help us to spread happiness, spread peace, and make us all become happier and spread happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
you
you,
so
Seema
much.
ma'am. I think that
Thank you.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Rahul, the bottom line